Hello, everybody. This is Lisa Lanasa with diaVerge Diabetes, and I'm joined here today with Allison Herschede and Marty Kendall from Optimizing Nutrition. We are so excited to see you guys and to join you and talk about nutrition for diabetics, whether it's type 1, type 2, all of our various needs that we have, whether it's weight loss, everybody needs blood sugar control, of course, but weight loss, weight gain, muscle building, all of those types of
Oh
things.
my.
So, Marty, we are so thrilled to have you here. You are really the expert in these
Oh,
circles.
wow.
So, wow,
Thank you.
absolutely. No, we're
Thank you
so
so much.
excited to have you here. And for all of you here on the diaVerge page, you know Allison. Allison and Marty have worked together more than I have worked with Marty. So Allison has a great perspective on a lot of Marty's groups and programs. So we're just hoping to have a great conversation here today and talk a little bit more about optimizing nutrition and what we should be focusing on for diabetic nutrition. So, Marty, would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about how you got into this niche, I
Yeah,
suppose.
well, I fell into a deep hole, didn't I? Yeah, my wife Monica is type 1 diabetic like you guys, and didn't quite understand completely what that meant when we got married. And I suppose I just thought it was involved. The sister-in-law said, you just age a bit quicker, but as you live with a diabetic, you learn a lot, and how important that blood sugar stability is. So when we started to think about having kids, started to try and learn about that and trying to stabilize blood sugars for a healthy pregnancy and avoiding all the complications. And then really, maybe 8 years ago, I came across Rob Wolf and paleo and then low carb, and then Troy Stapleton at a low carb down under introduced a bit of grit. And I fell into that, and that was really exciting, and that really changed our lives. And just seeing you guys just have flatline blood sugars, and Monty went, yeah, this is really possible, this is really doable, and I can achieve this. And I suppose that changed our life on a sort of lower carbohydrate end to try and stabilize blood sugars. But then being an engineer and wanting to learn more and understand it a little bit more, I went down the rabbit hole and found this food insulin index data to try and understand. We were talking before about how much insulin do you need for carbohydrates versus protein versus fat, and trying to understand which foods would help provide more stable blood sugars. And as most type 1 diabetics know, you need to dose not just for the carbohydrate, but also to some extent for the protein over maybe 2 hours, and then maybe a little bit for fat over the longer term. So I've been trying to quantify that, but I suppose as I tried to quantify that, you realize that the lowest insulin response over the short term is these really high fat refined oils, butters, which from a paleo context didn't have all the protein and essential nutrients that you need. So I thought maybe we can blend these two together with a sort of a multi-criteria analysis, which is something from engineering world, where you say, well, I want a bit of that and a bit of that and a bit of that, but how do we mix all that together? So basically did that with nutrition to optimize dietary choices for people with whatever their goals are. I realized that not everybody's needs a high fat keto diet. A lot of people are trying to lose weight and need a high satiety, nutrient dense diet. So there's all these spectrums, and over the last 5 years, I've basically tried to create different dietary approaches for different goals. And whether you be pescatarian or vegan or plant-based or whatever you want, really you need nutrients at the center of that, and then you can fine-tune your diet from there. So that's the rabbit hole that I fell into, and it's just completely fascinating because there's so much to learn, and so much. Nutrition is a very new science, and we're just getting our head around what works for different people. There's so much belief and just about mysticism, and we try to do agnostic nutrition. It's like, let's look at what actually works for real life people and what do they need, and how can we use the data to understand how their diet can be optimized for their actual goals.
And now you have an incredible amount of data that you've collected. I'm just astonished when I see some of the numbers that you post of all of the data that you've collected. Now, has this been
Yeah.
mainly from people in your groups, correct?
Yeah, we did a couple of things. Initially, we got 500,000 days worth of MyFitnessPal data, and basically these guys scraped it and put it together in one big
Did you say
database.
500,000?
Yeah, 565,717, I think it was. But yeah, so there's massive
Not
number
that you're counting at all, right?
of days of data. I suppose all the research is done in people in metabolic wards where they feed them a certain amount of calories, and they're all fixed calories. But that's completely irrelevant for everybody who's not weighing and measuring everything they eat and living in a metabolic heat chamber to try and balance the calories. So what you really want to know is, in the real world, what is it that makes you eat more or less than you need to? So we use that data to understand the macronutrients and how protein, fat, and carbs and everything else sort of help us to manage our satiety and eat more or less than we need to. And then we looked at, we've now got 90,000 days of data from optimizers. So people who are using Chronometer and uploading their data to Nutrient Optimizer. And we use that to look at all, not just the macronutrients, but the micronutrients, to understand what level of potassium and magnesium and omega-3 align with the point where your body stops craving more nutrients. So basically you eat because you need energy and which are calories and nutrients. So you need enough sodium, enough magnesium. But once you get enough sodium, your body settles down and says, oh, salty foods are really too salty and I don't want any more of that. I'll go for the omega-3 or whatever it is that I need more of. So yeah, our body just is an amazing machine that goes in search of those nutrients that it needs to thrive for.
But that gets thrown off, right?
Health. What was that?
But that gets thrown off with, today's diet, today's lifestyle.
Yeah.
You talked about the high energy. What's the word you use?
Yeah, hyperpalatable, I suppose.
Energy dense, hyperpalatable.
Yeah. All of our dietary advice is about what not to eat. Avoid cholesterol and saturated fat or protein or carbs or whatever your dietary religion is. But, if you say, okay, let's design a diet that puts nutrients in the center, then you've really, you maximize satiety and then you can bring in enough energy to survive. But our current diet is really that combination of fat and carbohydrates that, is only available in autumn leading up to winter, that sends us into this hyperpalatable feeding frenzy, and our brain goes into, winter is coming, I need to get fat as quick as possible to survive winter. But whether it's because of, optimization by food scientists or just luck that those foods sell more, that, our whole food system is now, and it's also very cheap to do, to mix the starch, sugar and vegetable oils all together with a bunch of flavors and colors to make it look amazing. And we just eat a whole lot of it and get really fat. So it sort of makes sense when you see it from that perspective of why we're in the situation we are, which drives type 2 diabetes, and then type 1s get double diabetes at the same time. Yeah.
Now you've put together a list of, an incredible list of recommendations as far as the macronutrients for different goals.
Yeah.
I was just looking at some of this earlier today in your recipe book series.
Yeah.
That you have 22 different recipe books based on different goals, which is just incredible. And of course, a few of these are for specifically for blood sugar management.
Yep.
Others are for bulking, or even there's 3 of them for cancer.
Yeah.
Just incredible. I love all of these kind of
I didn't realize
subgroups.
there were 3 until she said that. That's
yeah.
I love all these subgroups, and even pescatarian, egg-free, dairy-free. These are incredible resources that you've put together based on what people need. So Can you talk about how these were born, I guess?
Yeah, initially came from our diet at home and tracking things, and then putting recipes into Chronometer and then analyzing. It's basically trying to create recipes. Well, Allison was doing a challenge a couple of years ago where we were creating recipes for particularly fat loss with a nutrient focus, and trying to find the best recipes for people that contained that would promote satiety while also containing all the nutrients people needed. So then my nutrient optimizer partner Alex is in Texas, scraped 500,000 recipes, and we put it into a big database and filtered through that, and then entered a bunch of those in Chronometer. So we've got all the macronutrients and micronutrients, and then we can say, well, which ones that are, say, pescatarian or vegan or plant-based, or just, ideally you want to take off all the shackles and say which foods between, seafood, animal, plants, whatever you want, contain the nutrients that you need that you're struggling to get enough of, while also having a lower insulin load, particularly for people with diabetes, so their blood sugars and insulin aren't on this roller coaster. So for those sort of people, you need to dial down that insulin load so you're not over-injecting insulin. For the main part, that's refined carbohydrates, but to some extent, protein is a factor there, but then protein is such a factor in satiety, so you want to not underemphasize protein, and most of the recipes tend to be protein focused. So yeah, you can go from, if I want therapeutic ketosis, if you're you've got epilepsy and you want to grow, or you've got Alzheimer's or dementia, or those sorts of conditions, you can say, well, I need a therapeutic ketogenic diet to grow. But then you've got, blood sugar stabilization at the other end. You've got these high satiety recipes that will make sure that the ketones are actually coming from your body fat rather than the fat in your diet, that you're overdoing that dietary fat. And that's something I'm going down the rabbit hole a whole lot more lately, just trying to elucidate that point that I think a lot of people don't understand. Keto diet's just this big umbrella term that means a lot of things to a lot of different people, but they don't understand whether it's, is that from the exogenous ketones or the MCT oil I just drank? Will that magically make me skinny, or do I need to actually set up my diet to...
I tried that.
We all tried that and got really fat and went, something's not working here. And I'm sure you had more insulin requirement there when you...
I doubled my insulin. I was running like 200 plus. My A1C got up to 8. I had gained something like 15, 20 pounds.
With high
and
fat
I couldn't
keto?
figure it out. High fat keto. Everyone, all the groups, and people would say, more fat, push the fat. You're not eating enough fat. And I got it to like 90% fat. And I'm eating these just meals of fat. Why is this not working? I'm not eating any carbs. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, people need to understand what their goals are. Do they need that exogenous ketosis from their diet? Or are they trying to lose fat? And really all the benefits that we associate with ketosis generally come in that lower energy state, which I think you've nailed lately, because you've got to a much more optimal body composition and a whole lot lower insulin requirements. Your insulin level daily dose is a whole lot lower, and so you're thriving now. Yeah, so that can be achieved with more of a high satiety, nutrient dense, protein focused, with some meal timing thrown in to help you fine tune that.
So what are your, so what can you, I'm trying to figure out how to ask my questions here. It's late.
It's midnight
for those
over
of
there.
you who don't know, it's midnight for me. We're spreading across 15 hours between Allison on one end of the spectrum and Marty on the other. I'm in the middle. It's midnight here in Spain. So my thoughts aren't coming the way they should at this point, but bear with me. Okay. So for people with type 1 diabetes, let's talk a little bit about what the recommendations are for us. Of course, we have Dr. Bernstein, which we know and we love, and we follow his, recommendations for the most part. But he focuses on blood sugar control, not necessarily nutrient density of the foods. Yeah. So what is recommended for those of us with diabetes, whether it's type 1 or type 2? I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. B is really awesome in that he focuses on enough carbohydrates to enable you to get enough green veggies to get minerals. Particularly, he's very cognizant of the need to get enough nutrition. So it's not a zero carb diet. It's not a high fat ketogenic diet. It's a protein focused with enough veggies. So there's the 6-12-12 that you're allowed to get some carbohydrates in there. But really, I mean, the first priority is at the center is to get enough protein, not too much, not too little. And then for most people, it's just a matter of dialing out the refined carbohydrates, the refined starches, the sugars. And most people don't, they don't get fat in eating broccoli and spinach and those green non-starchy veggies. Nobody says, oh yeah, I overdid the spinach last night and put on 5 kilos of fat. Nobody does that.
Thank
so
goodness.
I mean, really, it's pretty. For most people,
I couldn't stop myself.
Yeah, I couldn't stop myself. There's 3 bags of spinach that gave me 60 calories, and you might get gut distress if you try to overdo those green veggies in massive quantities, and that's where you sort of find that balance point. But most people aren't overdoing the green non-starchy veggies that don't spike your blood sugars. I mean, type 1s, when they're watching the CGM, sometimes they do got some level of up and down. So I suppose that's a matter of titrating it down to find your stable level. But I mean, fiber, what do you guys find in terms of fibrous foods? Do they they wouldn't spike your blood sugars, but they sometimes have some response for people with type 1?
I have to bolus everything.
What was that?
If I'm eating, I have to bolus everything basically. If I put something in my mouth, I need insulin for it.
Yeah.
So veggies we always thought vegetables are free, but vegetables aren't free.
Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. So you need to bring it down enough so you can manage that. Basically, get off the blood sugar roller coaster to get a stable enough blood sugar that you can dose insulin that will match that. And Dr. B's law of small numbers is pretty much where it's at, that large intakes of refined carbohydrates and sugars will leave you on that roller coaster that you can't match with insulin. But if you sort of stabilize it with, nutrient-dense veggies to the point that you can still stabilize your blood sugars and plenty of protein, then you're going to be in a pretty good place, which is also highly nutrient-dense. So.
Now, through your data, have you found that the macronutrient breakdown is pretty close to what is recommended by Dr. Bernstein?
We're just standing on the shoulders of Dr. B, basically, and everything he did, and which sort of built off Atkins. So, just sort of everything I've done refines Dr. B's approach that's very much protein-focused with veggies. And ketogenes guys will talk about using fat as a lever if you need to dial up your dietary fat. But if you need to lose body fat, then you need to find a way to titrate it back to lose fat from your body. It's not a matter of going from super low protein to super high percentage protein, because it'll just be really hard to get enough calories in and you'll be hungry, or even though you'd be very low calorie intake, and you would lose fat if you could sustain that. But it's just a matter of slowly titrating up your protein percentage if you want to lose body fat, which is, the energy toxicity is fundamentally the basis of type 2 diabetes. So a lot of people with type 2 need to find a way to dial back the refined energy from carbs and fat in their diet.
Now, talking about type 2,
okay.
I think we were going to say the exact same thing. So, Allison, go ahead.
I was just going to say that kind of leads into the whole data-driven fasting. Can you tell us a little bit about the data-driven fasting?
Yeah. So I suppose if you guys are a type 1, the best way you can sort of cheat. You can throw in a lot of insulin to bring your blood sugars down, or you can just wait for that blood sugar to sort of stabilize and you go, yeah, okay, my blood sugars aren't too high, I can eat again. So I suppose I think, like, for type 1s, blood sugar stability is really important, and not being on the blood sugar roller coaster. But I think for the rest of the population, we've really focused on getting really stable blood sugars. And people have thought that blood sugar stability is the holy grail. And to do that, I've seen people walking around at low carb conferences wearing CGMs and saying, yeah, I'm trying to keep my insulin really low, and I'm just, drinking this olive, not quite to that extent, but, just
liquid butter.
yeah, here's my bulletproof coffee, and I'm drowning a leaf of spinach with a whole lot of fat or whatever. But, you may get really stable blood sugars with that approach, but the satiety value is very, very low, and it's easy to overdo the calories to the point that, like Allison said, you end up insulin resistant because you've gained too much fat and your body's holding back too much energy. And really the insulin plays two roles. One is to hold back. It's a signal to hold the energy in storage in your body while your body is using up all the energy that came in through your mouth. So the real way to reduce the majority of insulin for type 1s, it's called basal insulin, is not to avoid protein and carbohydrates completely. It's to find a way of eating that you can sustain that will help you to not overeat, so your body fat levels come down and your insulin levels come down. And for coming from that, tracking blood sugars all the time and being cognizant of blood sugars, really the way to do that is to check your blood sugar. If your blood sugar is still high, you can wait a little while for that sugar to be drained, because the glucose really sits on top of the fat, and you've got to burn the glucose before you can get to the fat in your blood, and then eventually the fat in your body. So that because the fuels are really stacked up on top of each other, then blood sugar is a really, really helpful way to understand our overall energy balance rather than tracking calories, trying to weigh and measure everything we eat. That blood sugar, for people who aren't cheating and injecting insulin, it's a really good way of understanding whether you're in an energy surplus or an energy deficit at this point in time. And if your blood sugars are low, then it's time to refuel. Your hunger is valid, and we eat for a lot of different reasons, but we can validate whether we're really hungry, whether we really need to eat, by checking our blood sugars. And if your blood sugars are high, you don't really need to eat. You're not about to keel over. It's just because that's, the peanut butter in the cupboard is yummy and you like eating it, or, you're watching that TV show that you're associated with eating twisties or whatever from the ads that brainwashed you to believe that, or whatever it is. There's a whole lot of different reasons. But so we set up data-driven fasting, did a little experiment, and it's running a second group at the moment, a group challenge, where people, they do a baseline period where they just track blood sugars before and after they eat for 3 days. They get, what is my typical blood sugar before I eat, and then going into this hunger training phase where they just test their blood sugars before they eat to validate their hunger. Lisa, you had a
yes, I have to interrupt here a second. But this is mainly for non-diabetics and type 2s, correct?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, type 1s can sort of cheat by injecting insulin.
Right.
But
I would even say that it's not even so much cheating with the insulin. My blood sugar is not going to drop if my basal is set correctly. So I can wait all day long and it's not going to drop. Yeah, no, for sure. So it's pretty much for everybody other than people injecting insulin. So for 99.99% of the population, it works. And we've seen people with raging type 2 diabetes that are really insulin resistant and really obese, down to people who are ladies who are really lean already, just trying to get leaner and leaner. So checking blood sugars can really help. The only situation where it tends not to work is if people are on a very low protein, high fat diet where their blood sugars aren't being affected by their diet, but they're refilling their fat fuel tank pretty much directly without, any blood sugar floating on top of it.
So yeah, that's been fun, and really, people love it. I've been wanting to teach everybody to eat well, and here's all my nutrient density stuff. But then I share the data-driven fasting. People go, "Oh, I want to learn how to not eat." It's like, oh no, okay, they work together. But okay, let's talk about fasting. That's great. So yeah, people are really into fasting, and I think that's a great thing to do, which it really is. But you need to. I think the problem with popular fasting culture is that they don't know how to refeed because fasting combined with keto leaves you with a very high fat, low satiety refeed. So as soon as you go too long, you get to the point where you go, I'm so hungry and I really earned this, whatever I decide to eat. And people just yo-yo and go up and down and lose and regain the same weight. But if you can track the data over time, you can make sure you're actually making progress and moving towards your goal in the long term.
Are there recommended macros for those refeeds, or does it just depend on your normal diet, I guess? Would the macros be different for different populations?
Really, when you get to the point where you say, okay, my blood sugars are really stable and they're not varying much, and I'm not losing weight, the next step is to say, okay, let's look at increasing the protein percentage, which is dialing back the carbs and fat in your diet. So we always just recommend nutrient-focused refeeds at that point. So when you do eat, prioritize, because if you're trying to decrease your blood sugars, which is your carbs, and lose body fat, which is your dietary fat, then you want to decrease both of those to some extent until you reach your goals. So yeah.
And you recommend tracking in Chronometer or another fitness?
Yeah. We Chronometer does all the micronutrients, which nobody else really does. So we use that and then tie it into Nutrient Optimizer, which is a tool that then says, okay, what foods will help you balance your micronutrients and improve your satiety. So yeah, once people hit that wall and they're not making progress, once the blood sugars are really rock stable, then the next step is to say, well, what's your macros? Are you getting enough nutrients when you do refeed? And everybody finds that eating earlier in the day seems to really help, rather than waiting till you eat at night and then eating before you go to bed, which is really hard because it's easier to eat late at night. And dialing up the protein percentage is really easy. It is a really helpful hack as well once they get to that point that the progress starts to stall.
So you mentioned the Nutrient Optimizer, and I don't know that a lot of people here know what that is. Can you talk about that and how you can find it? How about the user experience? How can you find it? How can you input your information into it? How do you find out what your body might need that you're missing from the foods that you're currently eating?
Nutrient Optimizer is basically the Swiss Army knife of nutrition that we tried to devise all these tools, and we're just trying to guide people through a process of saying, well, what are your current macros? We can link to Chronometer. So if you're tracking your food, you don't have to track your food, but if you track your food occasionally, it'll then say, well, maybe your blood sugars are high, so you need to dial back your carbohydrates for the coming week, and it just helps you titrate that back. And then, you're losing lean muscle mass, so you need to bring up your protein a little bit, and you're not making progress in terms of your overall weight loss goals. So let's dial back your fat a little bit so you get fat from your body. And then looking at micronutrients, it says, you're not getting enough omega-3 or magnesium or potassium, not just one nutrient, but the cluster of nutrients, maybe 5 nutrients that you're struggling to get enough of. And then says, from our 1,500 recipes that we've got in the database, including these recipe books, here's the recipes that will help you achieve those nutrients that align with your goals of blood sugar control or bulking or therapeutic ketosis or or whatever that may be, and here's the foods that will help you get those nutrients that align with your goals as well. So we saw a gap there that nobody else was doing that and thinking actually in terms of giving your body the nutrients it needed. So nutrientoptimizer.com is the URL. You can go there and do a quick survey and say, who are you, what do you like to eat, and what are your goals, and it'll give you an initial list of foods and recipes.
And then optimize it with an S.
Yes, because I'm an Aussie, which we use English rather than Americans. Just like to be different from the rest of the world. American.
We like all those brutal Z's. Yes.
Milligrams per deciliter, and don't like system international units, all that sort of stuff.
So I have to give you so much credit for this nutrient optimizer. I can't imagine how much work went into creating all of these personalized recommendations. It's just astonishing. So
thank you.
Fantastic work.
Yeah, I was doing it all in a spreadsheet, and then Alex came along and said, let's program it all. So it's really taken it. We're just continuing to refine it as we put people through our masterclass. Everybody gives feedback and says, well, what if you did this? And okay, let's program that. And so it's getting to the point where it's grown up and pretty robust now. So looking forward to seeing just a nutrient focused approach to nutrition. Who knew nutrition could be about nutrients? I don't know why nobody
not
thought
just
of
about grabbing whatever you want at the grocery store, right?
It's unreal. Yeah.
So one question that I had, this is a bit of a departure from what we've been talking about. As far as diabetics, based on what you've seen, is there a main nutrient deficiency for most people who have diabetes?
There are nutrients associated with diabetes. I mean, the B vitamins, which help you metabolize carbohydrate particularly and fat, are really important to help the mitochondria to actually use the energy you're eating. So if you're all the nutrients work in your mitochondria to actually enable them to produce energy, and if you're not able to produce energy efficiently because you're not supplying all the essential and non-essential nutrients in to help that occur, you're much more likely to struggle. But and we can niche down into that, and we do have food lists that focus on those nutrients, but generally just focusing on nutrient density for most people will get you most of the way, and just focusing on that top 5 or so nutrients that you're not currently getting enough of and eating more of the foods that contain them will help you get a little bit further down the road. But nutrient density, it's just it just turns off the cravings, and people just go, I'm eating
good
so few calories, but I don't want any more food. It's just happens over and over again that once they prioritize getting enough nutrients, everything else falls into place. So macros are important and interesting to manage, but the nutrients are just incredible.
And that's something we see a ton, is people saying that, I have all these cravings. I'm always hungry. I just can't seem to get control over what I'm eating. And that's a lot of people who are having problems or having challenges, I should say, with their transition to low carb are saying these types of things, that it's just these constant cravings.
I would also throw in that when your blood sugar is high, you are urinating out all those nutrients. So they say diabetics tend to be low in magnesium, and what they're losing in their urine, electrolytes in general. A lot of you're losing all that when your blood sugar is high. So a lot of people talk about, fruit has all these vitamins and grains have all these nutrients, and you're losing the benefit if your blood sugar is high.
And also along those lines, if your level of gluconeogenesis is really high, a lot of people in keto land avoid excess protein because it turns to glucose. But really what's happening is that because you're insulin resistant, your glucagon's high, your losing a lot of your protein to the glucose in your blood, your body then craves more protein, so you go out and eat more food. So by avoiding blood sugar excursions, by trying to stabilize blood sugars by avoiding protein, you end up actually eating more and becoming more insulin resistant because you're putting on more body fat, which is a damn shame, I think. So that's why Dr. B talks about giving enough insulin to, you need to stabilize your blood sugars and metabolize the protein at the same time. It's like, well, which one don't you want to do? Do you want to not repair and rebuild your muscles, or don't you want to have stable blood sugars? Okay, you want both. Make sure you eat the protein and give the insulin, and that's really critically important. And for type 1 and type 2 diabetes, not to avoid protein for fear of those blood sugar excursions. And that's why we say let's focus on the blood sugars before you eat and make sure you've depleted the excess energy in your bloodstream before you eat again. Rather than worrying so much about those blood sugar excursions for people who don't have type 1.
And I do have to point out that Alex popped the link to the Nutrient Optimizer Diabetes Diet in the comments here. So check that out. Thank you, Alex.
He's listening in.
Fantastic.
Somebody's watching.
You can just pop a few more links in there. That's fine.
Oh, we got a few.
Anything relevant. And now we do have quite a few people watching right now. So if you guys do have questions, pop them into the question or into the comments bar here. We would love to answer some of your questions towards the end of this. So let's see. So I do want to talk a little bit more about these recipe books and the few that, or the couple that you have for specifically for diabetes. So one is, let's see if I can find in my notes here. There is a blood sugar, what was it? Blood sugar and fat loss.
Yeah, we've got a nutritional keto, which is sort of designed for people who, want a low carb diet and are very active and don't need to lose weight. Then there's sort of blood sugar, which is sort of aimed at people with type 1 diabetes or who are weight stable and don't want to lose weight. Then we've got blood sugar and fat loss, which is sort of a higher protein, high satiety diet that's really hard to overeat. So you get all the nutrients without losing, while still getting plenty of protein, and it'll basically force an energy deficit if you eat those foods. And then it sort of scales all the way up to Ted's protein energy ratio book, which has got 63% protein, which will just be so satiating you won't be able to eat much at all, but you'll get jacked at the same time.
No, I just popped in the link to the.
Yeah. This link just magically appeared.
More links popping up. So this was a fantastic just outline of all of the different books, what they focus on. Yeah. And I was just astonished as I was reading through this list of these books that you have created. And here I thought you had 9, maybe 12. No, there are 22. So
we're looking at low histamine and low oxalate and.
So there's more. That was going to be my next question. What else is in the works?
Yeah, no, we should.
FODMAP.
Yeah, low FODMAP and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So.
Now, I do have to say, for anybody who's interested in these recipe books, I do have a post from the diaVerge blog that I will be sharing here. And these are all digital books, correct?
Yeah.
So they can be purchased by anyone, no matter where they are in the world. Yeah. It's a PDF download.
I should take you through a very quick tour if you want.
Oh, fantastic.
Can I'll do a screen share. Can I do that?
Yeah, I will add to the
stream. You
stream.
need to allow me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Whoa.
Cool. There's my silly face. There's details here.
This was not planned I have to say, this was not planned at all.
Yeah,
so.
I've taken over your live. So
no, this is great. Thank you, Marty.
You can get them in Chronometer. So they're all logged in Chronometer. So rather than having to type them all out yourself.
The meals are correct.
Yeah, all the recipes are already pre-logged, so you just look for it and find it. So we've got funky little table of contents that took forever to do, and then you've got directions and ingredients. And then if you click on the link in the recipes. It will come up in another window eventually. And it'll give you a nutrient breakdown of those meals. It does work, trust me. I was just thinking. So, and then at the end, sorry, it's a bit slow. We've got the recipes aligned. These are the best recipes for low carb and blood sugar. Then we've got a food list, and then 150 recipes at the end, which have got hyperlinks on the website. So people say, you're going to do a hard copy book? And it's like, well, it wouldn't work with all the hyperlinks that we've got to the website. So it won't really fly. But if you open the hyperlink for each recipe, you've got the micronutrient breakdown, so you can see your macros and then micros and the ingredients and what that recipe is suitable for.
I love that. It makes it so easy.
We wanted to show pictorially what nutrients each recipe was giving you, and somehow nobody else thinks of doing this, but we did. It took a lot of work, but yeah, Saskia, massive credit to Saskia in New Zealand, who photographed and cooked and tweaked all the recipes to make sure they had heaps of nutrients. So yeah, that's our baby.
I was at your web launch, or your initial
with Saskia. She's lovely.
Program with Saskia, and it was fantastic to see you both and learn more about this.
Yeah.
So now I'm trying to figure out how to get our screens back to side by side. There we go. Okay.
All like we're in the same room together.
We're just really squished in here. But, one quote of yours, I think it was in this link that I posted of the analysis of the recipe series, that you said no one quantifies micronutrient contents. And I thought that was amazing, because there are so many recipes out there and so many low carb resources, but nobody quantifies this as, whether it is micro or nutrient dense or not, until you guys came around. So this really is an unserved market, and I love it. I love this so much. So thank you for what you're doing, and thank you, Alex, because I know you're listening. So you guys make a great team.
Most of the time we just make recipes that taste good and comfort foods, and they full of whatever else that lights our taste buds up. But you can light your taste buds up with actual nutrition that always tastes amazing, because it tells your body that you've got the nutrients you need in that food, as well as actually giving your body what it needs without overdriving that binge response that you get from those comfort foods.
Yes, and a huge thank you to Saskia too, because like you said, she was instrumental in the creation of these recipes and the photography. So it certainly has a great appeal to it based on the beautiful photos that she included. So
thank you.
Yay, wonderful. So let's see, what else do we have? Allison? Allison, can you talk a little bit about your experience based on following some of Marty's groups and programs and things like that? Not to put you on the spot at all, but sorry.
No, I entered his weight loss challenge. I think it was in January of last year, 2019. I needed to lose about 20 pounds, and I did so in pretty short order. It worked really well. Just increasing the protein, that was the major factor, increasing the protein, lowering the fat. I was able to increase my insulin sensitivity by really good. I think I dropped my insulin by 10 or 12 units.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is massive.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And I've kept it off for the most part. I think I was up about 4 pounds, and I've just started a Whole30, and I've dropped those 4 pounds. So I'm back where I was at the end of your challenge. And I would say a Whole30 is pretty close to what you were promoting anyway.
Yeah, we just quantified it and told you why it worked.
Yeah. Right. Having the
So
dairy.
now, Marty, what sorts of challenges do you run?
We initially did
all sorts of stuff happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I went back to the day job on Monday. It was a bit sad, but it's been good to whole lot of stuff. My microphone's just gone a bit droopy. Yeah, so a couple of years ago we ran a nutrient optimizer challenge that then sort of evolved into the nutritional optimization masterclass, which is really a masterclass that really goes in deep on, what are macronutrients, what are micronutrients, and as you learn it, you actually implement it. So nothing like actually learning the theory and then seeing how your body responds at the same time. And then we get you up to the point in the last week where people compete to maximize the nutrient density. So that can be really fun. People get really, go to amazing.
I was so frustrated. My husband was eating at the same time, and he kept beating me, and his name is still well above me on that list. And it doesn't make sense in my head because he was eating like beef and cheese, and I'm throwing in all these different greens and salads. And how did that work?
Now, is that the one where there's a cash prize at the end?
Oh, we did have a cash prize.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was ages ago, but we find as people focus on getting the nutrient density, all the sort of macros and energy balance just becomes irrelevant because it's really hard to overeat these nutrient dense foods. So we sort of initially train you to dial in your protein and then carbs and then fat, and then look at the minimum nutrients required to prevent deficiency. And then it's okay, we're nutrient optimization. Let's look at the optimal nutrients. And then some people fall off the wagon and this is all too much for me. And really, if you just get a higher nutrient density than most people, you're doing well. But some people get amazing nutrient density scores. And we created a system that you couldn't get 100, but heaps of people do. And then we've got the data-driven fasting challenge, which we're running every 6 weeks, and people sort of go through that journey of the baselining and then using hunger training to acquaint themselves with their true hunger, using their blood sugars over the 4-week period. So that's just had amazing results. We introduce satiety, nutrient density a little bit, but that's not the focus, and it's a lot easier going than the masterclass, which is 5 years of Marty's brain dumped in 6 weeks. That could be overwhelming for even me. So
But I do appreciate how you put things in relatively easy to understand sort of way.
I try to dumb it down so I can understand it.
Oh, dude.
So.
No, maybe make it simpler for an audience like me that might not understand all of the science behind it. But as long as you understand the science, that's fantastic. We'll just leave it at that. So
that's fun.
So now I did want to invite questions here. Alex has put a couple more links out.
Oh, yeah.
Or one more link to...
So he's added the affiliate link for the diabetes.
For the fat loss.
Yeah, so that's great. Yeah.
Excuse me. So I do have to say that we will be posting the links to this. We appreciate Marty's programs. We want to promote Marty's programs because they are fantastic in our minds. And we appreciate what you're doing for the low carb community.
Thank you.
If people do choose to purchase using one of our links, we earn, a tiny percentage of the sale as kind of a thank you. But we're not being paid by Marty to, promote.
You volunteered to have
this information. I wanted to bring Marty in, and I knew Allison had worked with Marty, and you guys have actually worked together in a non-official sort of way in recently as far as looping goes.
It's been good. I've learned so much from Grit, and what she and RD have done in that group has benefited us and blown our world, blown our minds. And it's nice to see it going back and trying to share the learnings back. But we've been chatting about looping world and trying to get a closed loop system working, and I've just been trying to do that with Moni, and Allison's been picking my brains, and we've been sharing ideas. It's been fun.
And Allison's had some incredible results recently. So for anybody who hasn't seen Allison, can you share what your most recent looping results have been after 3 weeks?
Today's kind of bumpy, actually.
Okay, fine.
The last few days, my standard deviation that's been the lowest it's ever been. I've been seeing standard deviations 10, 12, 13. I'm not able to accomplish that any other way.
And you had an A1C.
I mean, even today, which I'm considering a bad day now, is not bad. I'm just getting really spoiled at these really tiny standard deviations. I'm getting used to lower and lower. So it's like, oh, I'm at 20 today.
It's 20 for standard deviation, and you're frustrated with that. Oh my gosh. So what was your home A1C test the other day, which can be off by a
0.8.
4.8.
Which was predicted in extra, but I was really shocked that it dropped that quickly because I had actually climbed up a bit. I was struggling on Tresiba. Again, I was experimenting with Tresiba, and it dropped in pretty short order. So I'm super happy. I'm still ironing out. Yeah, it's great.
Marty, Monica's having great success with looping too.
Yeah. It's fascinating, but as an engineer, you sort of, like Allison said, you want to optimize it more and more, and you have to, it does a lot of things, but it's definitely not a hands-off set and forget. It's an autopilot, but you really have to be there in the driver's seat at the same time, just tweaking it and refining it, and definitely amazingly stable blood sugars, and it's great to it just. Every 5 minutes, it makes a new decision about what your basal should be and sends that to the pump, so you land exactly where you need to be in a certain amount of time. So it's just a matter of tweaking the basal and tweaking the insulin sensitivity and carb ratio and those sorts of things. But due to hormones, they always shift and change. But once you've seen the light and you think, I can get even better blood sugars, you want to keep on optimizing, which I suppose what I've found with CGMs. Yeah,
I'm totally obsessed right now. It's like I'm looking at this thing 100 times a day, and it's man, let's move that target.
I think that really speaks to our nature as low carbers, because we've had this taste of like, oh my gosh, we can control this. We have the power in our hands, and we just want to keep going and going and going and tweaking and making things better and refining and everything like that. So I think that really speaks to our experience as a whole with this sort of lifestyle. So it's fun to hear you guys talk about it.
I want to dial it down even more.
The wheels keep rolling in my head when I'm hearing your stories. And I know this is a big aside from what we came here to talk about, but I do love to hear your experience and share your experience to other people who might not have heard of looping before, or who might not have heard of these successes before. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely the future of type 1 management.
That's funny you should say that, because that was one of my questions for you. I have right here, as an engineer, what do you see as the future of diabetes management?
Diabetes management. Definitely for type 1s, getting that looping sorted. And I think Tidepool are doing working with Medtronic and Dexcom and a few other companies to actually do an FDA-approved loop, which will probably take a while to come out, but due to the passionate parents and nerdy programmers in the type 1 diabetes community, which I'm in awe of what they've done, the looping thing is amazing. The future of diabetes management, I think, going from the belief that for type 2 diabetes, that diabetes is a situation of you're allergic to carbohydrates, or it's a carbohydrate intolerance disease, thinking of it as an energy toxicity situation. Ted talks about the protein leverage hypothesis and energy toxicity rather than insulin toxicity. And I think a lot of the keto crowd have got paranoid about insulin, but Dr. B's never been afraid of insulin when it's required. You need enough insulin, but the insulin is not just a response to your diet. Really, the dietary component of insulin is only maybe, for Allison, 10 or 20% of her diet. The rest of it is the basal insulin that holds your body fat in storage. So the way to optimize that aspect of insulin is a high satiety, nutrient dense diet that enables you to optimize your body composition. So I think that just makes it all make sense for me and brings it all together, and hopefully the low carb keto community will continue on that that journey of understanding how to really optimize insulin levels and satiety. And it's not keto's magic and we need more ketones so we can get more ketones and everything magical happens. It's about, beneficial ketones happen when they're endogenous and coming from your body fat, when you manage an energy deficit that enables you to optimize your body composition. So I think hopefully that's the next frontier, and I'm trying to push that button to move it down that track. And actually I'm trying to, Alex said I should write a book a couple of weeks ago, and that's been my obsession for the last couple of weeks, of compiling all my posts into one called Big Fat Keto Lies, the keto lies my low carb doctors told me. So I'm trying to pull that together to poke the bear and all the things that I've gone off on the wrong track, believing things that I found 5 years ago, didn't stack up. We've got better data, we've got a better understanding, and how can we help the people who really, really need it to optimize their diet to gain better health.
Oh, wonderful.
I've got another super fan, Sue. Sue's amazing.
I was just going to say, she said, your system is super amazing for immunosuppressed folks like her.
Yeah,
so,
she's
yes, you definitely have super
done really
fans.
Well. A couple.
She's had some amazing results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now she's posting at 70 her gun show pictures of how jacked she is, because she's amazing.
Yay, that's great. Now let's see if anybody has questions, post them now. We're going to be wrapping up here, so this is your final call for questions. We will be adding some more links and a link to the blog post about all of the recipe books after we are done here. And I'm about ready to fall asleep, so I think I've hit my wall here, so my eyes are getting heavier and heavier.
Tomorrow's Saturday.
It is coming up on 1 a.m. here in Spain, so I am ready to be done. As much as this is a fantastic conversation, we really appreciate you being here, Marty. Thank you so much, Allison, as always. I love our conversations, and I love being able to have people like you on, Marty, to really help us learn about other aspects of health and diabetes management, and you have such a great perspective, being an engineer, having a very close experience with type 1 diabetes, and all of what we go through on an everyday basis. So
cool. It's been fun to chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the people who have been here live with us, as well as the people who are going to be watching this recorded. Check out our links, and also check out Marty Kendall's site at Optimizing Nutrition. That is optimizing with an S.
Yes.
And we have several links in the comments here that will lead you there. So thanks again, everybody. We appreciate it. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, have a great day. Have a great night. And we'll talk to you again soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Sleep well.
Thank you. Have a great day, Marty.
See ya. From the future. See ya.
Bye.